I was relieving myself in the desert when I suddenly saw a flash of gold in the ground not far away. I walked over to check and brushed away the sand on top. That was when I found a giant gold nugget. I looked over at Nick in the distance, and after hesitating again and again, I still shouted for him to come take a look. Nick was stunned too, to check if it was real gold. He immediately pulled out a lighter and started heating it, but after more than half an hour, that chunk still did not change at all, which meant the purity was extremely high. Excited, we grabbed our tools and started digging, but even after hours of digging, we still could not reach the bottom of it, no matter how hard we tried. We could not move it even a little. This gold mass was way bigger than we imagined. Then we tied a rope around it and fastened the other end to the trailer hitch. After that, we started the engine and tried to drag it, but the gold still did not move. We tried several times in a row, and every time ended in failure. With no other option, we went back to digging again. Even after several more hours, we still could not find the bottom of the gold. The sky slowly started getting dark. To guard against wild dogs at night, we had no choice but to gather firewood just in case. Even then, we were still imagining the rich life we would have after selling the gold. But once we calmed down, we knew the most important thing now was getting the gold out as fast as possible. Nick suggested we split up. One of us would go to the nearest town for an excavator, and the other would stay here to guard the gold. Nick told me he had more experience in the desert, and he was the best person to stay behind. But I shut that down right away. I found this mountain of gold, and I was not leaving it no matter what. Seeing how stubborn I was, Nick started explaining the dangers of the wasteland. Out here, we had to deal with wild animals in the brutal desert weather. Nick told me to think it through, but I still would not budge. Once he saw my mind was made up, he stopped trying to change it. The next morning, we started dividing up the supplies. Nick said he needed extra water to cool the engine, and took most of it with him. Before he left, he tossed me a satellite phone and said we would stay in touch with that. Then Nick drove off without looking back. In that massive empty desert, I was suddenly alone. First, I covered the gold with sand. Then I used a tarp to build a simple shade shelter. To prepare for wild dogs at night, I gathered more firewood ahead of time. With the help of the fire, I made it safely through the first night. But when I woke up the next morning, I saw something shining in the distance again. I walked over to check and found the wreckage of an old plane. After getting closer, I realized it would make the perfect shelter, and the insulation